Hello everyone. In this tutorial, we are going to configure a DHCP server. In our last tutorial, we created 4 networks and we connected all the networks together. In this tutorial, we will configure one DHCP server for each one of these networks. Now, before we do the configuration, let me just quickly give you a short definition of DHCP server. What exactly DHCP server does? If you configure a DHCP server, let's say in network 1, and then if you add new users to network 1, DHCP server will automatically assign an IP address to all the new users. Once you configure the DHCP server, its job will be to assign IP addresses to all the new users. Now, I will give you an example. I will show you step by step how DHCP server does that. Let's start. First of all, we need to select the server. If I drag and drop it here, you can see that we have a server here. Let's just rename the server. DHCP server. Also, we need to assign an IP address to this server. Let's assume IP address of DHCP server is 192.168.1.4. Now we will connect this DHCP server to the switch. Click on this Thunderbolt option, select the copper straight through cable, which is the third one from the left, and click on the devices. After that, we will assign this IP address. We have just written down the IP address here, but we need to assign this IP address to the server. So click on the server. The window will come up on the screen. Click on desktop, click on IP configuration, and then type the IP address, which is 192.168.1.4. If you click on the subnet mask, it will come up as it is. And the default gateway will be 192.168.1.1. We don't have any DNS server in this network, so we will leave this field as it is. We will update it later once we add a DNS server to the network. Now, let's just close the window. We have successfully assigned an IP address to DHCP server. Let's just close this window. Let's check whether we can create a successful connection between PC1 and DHCP server. Click on PC1, click on command prompt, and then ping from this PC to the server. Type ping space 192.168.1.4. Let's see whether we receive successful replies or not. Yes, as you can see, we are receiving successful replies from DHCP server. You have sent 4 packets, you have received 4 packets, 100% success. Now, the next thing we need to do is we need to configure this DHCP server. Click on the DHCP server, click on services, and then you will see different services here. You need to select DHCP. As you can see that the service is on. You need to power on the service and then type the default gateway, which is 192.168.1.1, We will just leave it as it is because we haven't added any DNS server to the network. As you can see, the start IP address will be 192.168.1.0, which means if you add a new user to the network, the first IP address DHCP will provide is 192.168.1.0, but we don't need that. We don't want that. What we need is an IP address, let's say 192.168.1.10. Now you may have a question, why 10? What happens to all the IP addresses up to 192.168.1.9? Well, we will keep some IP addresses separate so that we can manually assign those IP addresses to different servers. But at the end of the day, that completely depends on you. So this DHCP server will start assigning IP address from 192.168.1.10. Subnet mask 255.255.255.0. Maximum number of users for this network is 255. Now, if you save this option, you will see that this one is updated. Default gateway 192.168.1.1. Start IP address will be 192.168.1.10. Subnet mask is okay. Maximum user 246 because we have already taken 10 users. Now let's check whether this one works or not. What we will do, we will select, let's say, 2 new users. We will create 2 new users and we will connect these users to the network. We will just click on copper straight through cable and we will connect this user to the switch and the other user to the switch as well. Now, if you click on this PC, go to desktop, click on IP configuration, you will see there are 2 options here. If you want to manually assign an IP address to this user, you can just type here. If you want to send a request to DHCP server so that DHCP server can assign an IP address to this new user, just click on DHCP here. As you can see, it says DHCP request successful. If you look into that, you will see that the IP address is 192.168.1.10. That is the starting IP address. Subnet mask is okay. Default gateway 192.168.1.1. DNS server 0.0.0.0 because we don't have any DNS server here. So if the first IP address is 1.10, then the next IP address should be 1.11. Let's check that. If you click on PC8, go to desktop, click on IP configuration, and then click on DHCP, requesting IP address, DHCP request successful. See, the next IP address is 192.168.1.11. All other details are same. If you add another user, then the next IP address will be 192.168.1.12. And this is how we can configure DHCP server.